Hey there, my friend. This is Dr. Anthony Balduzzi, and I want to welcome you back to another episode here on the Fit Mother Project podcast. In just a moment, you're about to hear a powerful and inspiring conversation between myself and one of our Fit Mother program members, Deb Armenta. Deb is amazing. I'm just so filled up from this conversation that we just had because Deb just turned 60 years young and she is completely kicking butt with her health and fitness. But what's cool about Deb's story is that was not the case 2 years ago. 2 years ago, she's going to describe her physical condition was a mess. Her energy was tanked. She was bloated all the time, overweight, and she was going through so many challenging life changes, like physically, logistically, and she'll share all of that. But during that time, when all this stuff was shifting for Deb, she made the commitment to start to work on her health because she knew that she was feeling out of alignment and she wanted to restore that alignment. And she knew the body piece was a huge component of it and she needed something sustainable. So in Deb's word, whether it was the grace of God or just happenstance, like she found this program. And she started working it. And in her small apartment in San Francisco, she started swinging those kettlebells, making better food choices. And the amount of transformation that happened for her over these past 2 years is absolutely incredible. And I love to share Deb's story too, because she's been at this for some time. A lot of people make these fitness kicks, 30-day things, 60, 90, but she's 2 years plus into this, absolutely loving it, totally on fire. So listen to this episode because you're going to find a lot of inspiration and straight up inspiration because you are not over the hill. You can make incredible transformations at 60. You can get strong. And Deb even ran a 200-mile relay race with our team. So I'm not going to take the thunder of this conversation because there's so much good stuff in terms of wisdom. And what I love about this conversation too is we don't just talk about the tactical stuff on what worked for her on nutrition, exercise. We kind of get deep into the psychology, the emotional side of this, the spiritual side of this, and Deb really opens her heart and shares a lot. So without further ado, let's get into this amazing conversation with Fit Mother, Deb Armenta. All right, Deb, welcome officially to the Fit Mother Project podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Dr. A. It's a privilege to be here and just thrilled to meet you in person.
I know this is fun, like in person, online, like it's such a blessing in today's day and age that we have the ability to connect to one another. I mean, there's a lot of like problems we could point out with technology, but I also think the blessings here are that you and I are literally on an interview call right now, you having found this Fit Mother thing online and used it and changed your life. So I do feel very blessed that we have this capability in today's day and age. And to kick things off, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to all the ladies listening so they have a little background info on you, name, age, where you're from, and anything you'd like to share about work and family.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. And it's a blessing and kind of a mind-boggling reality that we live in so many beautiful ways. But so I'm Deb Armenta, and I just turned 60, which I'm still trying to wrap my brain around. I ran the Radnar to prove that I could still live and breathe and do something challenging with our fabulous fit family. It was such a joy. But so I actually I'm a mother of four grown sons that are all bigger than me at this point, taller than me. And I've been married for 36, almost 37 years.
Wow.
And so my professional background, I'm a trained, what's called a pastoral minister. I'm a professionally trained chaplain. I've taught at higher education. I've done a lot of chaplaincy work, hospice work, a lot of working with people in very frail situations, people with overcoming addiction, homelessness, trauma. So my work sort of continues on now, as I move forward in this stage of my life. And the Fit Mother Project, I have to say, it's just unbelievably fortuitous that it even came across my radar. And truthfully, I don't even know how. I really think I'm going to call it a graced moment because we were in just huge transition in a very, very difficult time. I've overcome a lot of illnesses in my journey. I'm a post-cancer patient. I'm now 6 years cancer-free, but I had 4 surgeries related to my cancer and my bilateral mastectomy. I had 5 miscarriages actually during the course of, when we were growing our family. But at the time in 2020, we were in lockdown like everybody else. I was trying to help my youngest son get out the door to college in the middle of this pandemic. We were trying to downsize, so we we were in a transition housing wise. I was furloughing out of my work, and my husband was working remotely, and I had suffered a case of COVID and had ended up in the hospital. And then I had an emergency appendectomy. So I
Wow.
was suffering from adrenal fatigue, just everything, really emotionally, physically. I was bloated, I was sick, I was exhausted, and really struggling with some depression. It was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
grieving and a lot of loss. And as we're packing up and we're putting things into a pod, there's nothing more humbling than realizing that your entire life fits into a pod. And and I'm trying to get my youngest son, get him in the car and pack him up. And we made the decision to move out to California from Chicago, and actually helped some family during the pandemic in a remarkable way. But as I was packing, and I'm just scrolling through my things on my phone, I see this Fit Mother thing, and I'm like, is this for real? So I started doing a little research, and I thought, well, let me try the freebie. And then we're packing up, and then we're driving across country, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going all in, because I needed something at that moment that was I needed a life raft, really,
Mm-hmm.
something solid that I could glean onto. My eating was just horrible. I was terribly bloated. I was at minimum 30 pounds overweight, but even beyond the
Mm-hmm.
weight, it was my mind, the COVID fog, the bloating, all the wrong foods, the stress eating, the too much alcohol. I'll be very candid. That's
Mm-hmm.
a fallback. And as I started to read the materials, and I thought, this is exactly what I've been really looking for to transform my life. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar. This will show my age, but I tried way back in the day. Mary Lou Henner, she did no meat, no sugar, no dairy, no
Mm-hmm.
alcohol. It was basically lettuce leaves, and I did
Mm-hmm.
Atkins, and I did Weight Watchers, and I did keto, but this was different because, and it is different, and because it put me into a community of people that were, I mean, incredible stories, and just they walk with me. They
Mm-hmm.
still walk with me, and I walk with them. And so we're driving across country, and I said to my husband, okay, this is my eating list. We're going to Chick-fil-A because I want a cool wrap. That's
Yeah.
it. And just from there I went on, and so we moved into a condo in San Francisco for a year, and everything again locked down, and I could get out and I could go up and down the Embarcadero, and I was talking with Amy and Diane and the whole group, and it just took off from there. And yeah, so that's and here we are 2 years and 2 months later, and
Wow.
I love this program more, and it's taken me through all of these changes, and back to Chicago now, and living in our piece of property we bought, and and I ran the Ragnar back to celebrate my
Mm-hmm.
60th birthday in October, and
Wow.
yeah, so here we are. It's just an incredible journey, and my gratitude is just for what it has given me in not just my body, because the weight will go up and down a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really about a life roadmap. And this is a
Mm-hmm.
life roadmap for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel hugely grateful for your whole team, because they are some of the best. They really are. And they listen to us women whine. I'll admit it, I'm a whiner some days.
Yeah, and that's part of
Oh,
it, right? This is not easy, but it gets
no.
easier like when you get established. And I want to commend you too for during that intense period for also like having the courage, or you just, the screw it mentality to actually like add the nutrition on top of all the other life changes. I think that's like something that not a lot of people would have done, but I can see as an initiating event that like you're like, all this change is happening. Let's get the body going too. And I'd love you to speak to this too, especially with your line of work and having helped so many people with like deep stuff, how changing the physical body affects maybe like these deeper layers of ourselves, the emotional, the mental well-being, even the spiritual well-being. Please speak to that either on my more philosophical level or to your direct experience.
Well, that's huge. And on a personal level, I just know this throughout my entire life. And I have been I have stayed really through my whole adult life very connected. It's just an integral part of who I am and what I do. But what's so fascinating to me, and I think especially as I get older, I realize more and more that, when it's all deeply connected. And when the
Hmm.
body goes out of whack, the spirit goes out of whack. And when the spirit goes out of whack, the mind, the soul, however you call it, it also goes out of whack. And that we can't compartmentalize. When we compartmentalize, that's where the
Yeah.
breakdown happens, right?
Yeah.
We're meant to be integrated, whole
Yes.
human beings, and that to me is what this journey really is about. It's about full integration. And I've seen this with the people that I've worked with over the years, that people who have come through just the most unbelievable traumas, and they begin to know the truth of who they are,
Hmm.
which is that they are beautiful human beings
Hmm.
created in goodness, right?
Hmm.
And when people begin to really appropriate that and live out of that, then it's like, well, I've got this part of me over here that's not doing so well. How do I
Hmm.
bring this into alignment, and
Yeah.
how is this going to affect the rest of me? And
Hmm.
I know this on a firsthand level. When I start to go off the program and I know that I'm going a little bit, I've had too much travel, too much stress, too much, that it's everything else starts to go that direction. So
Yeah.
it's not just about the weight on the scale. I mean, it's really about full integration of
Yeah.
our entire beings.
Very well said. Beautifully said, in fact. And I think integration is a great word. This alignment, like you naturally move your hands for those listening into like this line, which means
Right.
that when integrated, it feels like wholeness, that idea of
Right.
integrity. And the idea of self-love, perhaps too, that when
Yes.
we take care of this body, it's like doing good stuff for ourselves, which
Right.
is an act. It's like a blessing every day of that self-love, which begets more of that. And I also
Yes.
love what you said about like, 2 years into this journey, like it's natural that you have some deviations because those are
Yes.
life pressures that are they're
Right.
constantly, they're like the airs the wind in the air that's like guiding the plane in different directions. But this program and the way you make it yours can be a through line that you can always come back to, and maybe even some bumper rails so you don't
Right.
go all way off the rails compared to other things. So please speak to that. Speak to maybe like how the flow has been over the course of 2 years, because there's a lot of ladies listening to this that may only be like 6 months into this. So what's
Right.
it been like maybe, over a longer course of time following this?
No, that's a great question, and it really is a roadmap to me. And I was just talking with my husband about this last night, and he was saying the same thing. He said, and he's funny because he says, I see how hard you work, and I see how you put yourself into into Fit Moms and everything else you do. And I said, well, yeah, but he said, but he has such joy because he does know, and I see it in myself that different life pressures. For instance, I did a lot of traveling in my previous job that I just
Mm-hmm.
put the pause button on back in July. But so I had 5 cities I was flying to grow these programs for folks in really difficult circumstances. And wasn't eating well. I'd get into a hotel, I try to find the gym, but it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
always work. It's 11 o'clock at night, can't sleep. Oh, let me go grab a glass of red wine down at the bar, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And then getting back from that and realizing, I'm exhausted. I'm nutritionally depleted. I know
Mm-hmm.
this. I haven't been hydrating properly. And then I just pull out my materials and I just begin again. And the most important thing to me is and this is a challenge, I think more so for women, and I say that because I raised a house full of men.
Yeah.
I'm still
We'll
raising
consider
them.
you a subject. You're a subject matter expert on raising men too, for sure. Four
Oh my
times for sure.
goodness. Yeah. Oh, and my husband would throw himself in the category and say, "5,
Five.
honey, don't forget me."
Fair enough.
Yes. We have a pretty honest relationship at this point, women are so full of negative messages and self-recrimination and
Mm-hmm.
really screwed up body images in the media.
Mm-hmm.
And we and I could get into that mindset. Well, my body at 60 is not what it was at 30 or
Mm-hmm.
40 or 50, and even 6 years ago post cancer, so it's really honoring. And because you named this, Dr. A, and I love that. It's really a form of self-care and self-love. And that's where it has to begin. And so that's what instead of this recrimination and negative self-talk, which we all have PhDs in as women, it's just like, no, you know what? I really am the best version of myself at this point in my life.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's those kinds of things I think are the ongoing challenge. But again, just going back to this roadmap of when I do go off the rails a little bit,
Yep.
it's not like I've ditched the program.
Right.
And I even last night I pulled out my recipe book because I have all my pages in a binder, and I made the steak and I made the quinoa and I made the peppers, and my husband's like, "Wow, this is fabulous, honey." Like, yes,
Nice.
thank you, Dr. A.
Yeah. That's like so much wisdom you just shared there. And what came to me as you were speaking is this idea of like acceptance, which is an important part of like gracefully aging, like accepting that we go through these different stages. And you can contrast that idea of acceptance with the idea of discontent, but like almost like a good discontent, that discontent when you're like, I'm not supposed to feel bloated and like, I don't want to be like this. So that's like the motivating, initiating discontent that gets us to want to make a change and invest the energy to it. And at the same time, as we go through our journeys, we have this acceptance of like, of the progression of our bodies, of creating new normals, of loving ourselves at every given stage. Yeah. And I think you can only get there to that acceptance after you've like run the miles of gone through whatever this period is that you needed to make like that initial shift. It's like you can get into more of this acceptance once you've made that change. So I kind of want to get into this period of you actually making the change with the program, going through the phases of FM30X. Let's get very tactical and talk to you about nutrition. Like when you start this and you read over the Fit Mother meal plan, what stood out to you as like either novel ideas or stuff that made sense, or what did you really start implementing right away that you think like started to move the needle for you?
Oh my goodness. So it was a huge shift for me. I mean, I always tried to feed my family well, but heavy on the carbs, heavy on the breads. But what struck me first, and I struggled with this, was the water. I mean, I literally, I had the meal plan and the outlines, but more than anything, it was the water discipline. And that was huge for me. And realizing, and I have to laugh because, again, I'm a mom and I've kind of seen it all at this point. But when you did your video on poop, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, really? But you know what? Water has been transformational to me.
Yeah.
Transformational. And so I am a chronic migraine sufferer. But the dehydration issue has come up with me and my neurologist over the years. And I still continue to have them, but I know that my eating and my drinking of the hydrating, I'll get anywhere from 70 to 100 ounces a day on the days that I don't. Oh my goodness. It's so obvious. So that was a key and difficult starting point for me.
Yeah.
So, and then shifting, grazing, like unconscious grazing, as moms, as you're cleaning up the plates and you're eating everybody's leftovers, or at least I did, or in the breakfast in the morning, they left some pancakes. Well, I'll just have a few of those pancakes and some French toast sticks. And you don't even realize how much you're eating. And, I love what this has done for me. It has made me mindful and intentional about food and about what my body really actually needs to thrive. And it needs good nutrition and upping my protein. I mean, I was a carb loader, heavy carbs, really low on the protein. And I've done a complete about face on that. And that was a challenge because my body naturally craves sugars, craves carbs, 2 glasses of wine on a night out, and the next morning I'm like clawing at the walls thinking, oh my gosh, I need to go out and eat donuts now. So, I know my triggers. And so rather than beating myself up over that, it's being kind and gentle to myself and saying, yep, okay, well, you enjoyed that. And now it's just time to, get back to the water, get back to the protein. And so, I know I digressed a little from your question, but it really is. It was that huge. The water first,
Mm-hmm.
shifting at the balanced meals, the perfect plate. When
Yeah.
when I came back and I met up with my primary doctor here in Chicago, and she's like, "Wow, you've lost 30 pounds. What'd you do?" I said, "Well, I did perfect plate." And she kind of looked at me and I said, "Well, it's this program." And she got a big kick out of that. But she noticed the difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's a lot of, taking a lot of what we're kind of thrown at, the cereal commercials. Oh my
Right.
goodness, cereal's one of the worst things you can possibly eat. And
Right.
as a mother, my kids were raised on cold cereal. I will
Sure.
tell you right now. So yeah, there's just a lot of education and wisdom behind what you have put together that makes it very user friendly. That's
Mm-hmm.
the key. It's user friendly. So it's very methodical. And I thought, okay, let me just go one step at a time. So
And I think when you get that structure, like when you start to be more intentional, conscious of your decisions, and you stop the just unintentional, unconscious grazing, and you become more structured,
yes,
you get the ability to practice, and you get the ability to build some confidence and some competence, and to build up positive momentum because you have a track to follow every day. And even if yesterday wasn't perfect, you have a new track to come back on. And the more you groove that new track, the easier it kind of becomes over time. And now you're here years later, kind of working this.
yes.
So I'd love to talk about exercise too, because you're kicking butt and lifting weights now at 60. And I want to talk about the idea of strength too, because I think there are a lot of ladies who either have avoided strength training or are now starting to realize the importance of strength training. And it can be intimidating, perhaps for some people at least, to start to get in and do certain kinds of workouts. And I think it's important for women to also understand that you can get dang strong, in your 50s and your 60s and beyond when you have the right program. So let's talk about strength in the exercise aspect of your journey.
So I love this program. I was active when I was younger, so the exercise part was not unfamiliar to me. And then as I got older, I was a walker. But this was very different for me. I mean, I bought my first set of kettlebells online driving across the country. We literally pull into the Bay Area, and I said to my husband, "They're at Walmart." I look at my phone and said, "They just came in. We're going to Walmart before we even go anywhere else." Got my kettlebells. I'd never ever touched a kettlebell in my life. Talk about intimidating. And
Mm-hmm.
and even, so self-conscious, even though I'm in this 700 square foot condo in downtown San Francisco and I got this alcove with no ventilation, there I am swinging my kettlebells.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a huge change for me. And there's a couple of things for me just in my own personal life. My knees are not what they used to be, and
Mm-hmm.
I've overdone at different times, and I've hurt my knees, and I know that I
Mm-hmm.
have to dial it back. Again, I'm not 30, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm still strong. And then I also have arthritis and stenosis in my back. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I just recently had another MRI for my spine, and it's definitely deteriorating. I'm
Mm-hmm.
aging, as my doctor said, but I know that if I don't move, I won't move.
Sure.
And I see in family members, that have chosen not to, and it's debilitating. So
Yep.
I see it as critical now. It's not just something to look good. It really is. I also worry a lot, and I've talked to my neurologist about this. I worry about my brain health. And I
Mm-hmm.
know I'm reading all the neuroscience on Alzheimer's. My dad had Alzheimer's for 12 years before he passed. And my husband's got Alzheimer's very, very significantly on his side of the family. But weight training, cardio, I mean, this is all critical for good brain health.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I just, so the getting over the fear factor,
Mm-hmm.
doing some routines that to me, said a lot of bad words out
I'm
loud.
sure.
But that's okay. What is it? I think it was Diane who said to me, "Well, that's your battle cry." I said, "Yes, sirree, ma'am. That is my battle cry." But then, I mean, just remarkably, to just give an example, I posted this because one of the women said, "Oh my gosh, I started the Apex 10 and I only got to 6 and I only had 5-pound weights." I said to her, "That was me." I said,
Mm-hmm.
"And I just did 15-pound kettlebell, Apex 10, the heaviest weight I've ever lifted, both hands, because I couldn't even
Dang.
do that 6 or 8 months ago." I said, "So just be patient and stay the course because it does
Mm-hmm.
evolve." And so Yeah, the exercise piece, especially the older I get, I have to do the yoga. I have to. I
Hmm.
have to do it for my mobility,
Yep.
because my joints, if they're not lubricated, they are stiff, and I will crawl out of bed barely able to stand up. So at this point in my life, it goes beyond. I mean, sure I want to look good and I want to feel good, but it's about being the healthiest I can be as my body continues to age, which it will
Hmm.
do.
Yeah.
So,
Such great perspective. And just a couple things jumped out to me as you were sharing that. One is that it's important for us to find many different types of reasons that
mhm,
connect to exercise about why it's important. So the aesthetic
right,
reasons, we all have them on some level. But the
right,
fact that you now know some of the science and you've dug into it and you have a deeper why around exercise because of brain health, because of family risk factors, because of, the experience of some of your joints and the aging of that, you have so
right,
many reasons to exercise. And I think the people that fall off track with exercise maybe only have like one or two soft reasons. But when you get like 4 or 5 strong reasons about why this is essential, you have so
right.
many different motivation tracks that makes it a lot more likely that this doesn't become a negotiable thing for you. It's like, I'm going to get exercise in because it helps me on all important levels. And those reasons are what the people who stick to these programs long term are the people who have reasons. So I love that you got into some of the why and the science of this, and you're such a learner and a researcher and obviously very sharp. So that, I think that's very
Yeah,
powerful. And the grace, again, it comes back to this grace with our bodies that, recognize that you need certain things, that your knees aren't great. Like I've had
right,
several knee surgeries in my right knee. I'm not as old as you, but I feel the same thing, modifying
right.
things, working
Yeah.
around limitations instead of accepting them, and then finding the path that does work for you. And also, to be said, you did run a 200-mile race with our team. So it's like, the knees are bad, but like you can clearly run some miles, right? So, I mean, that's something to be said. And the fact that I'll tell you, the 15 pounds on the Apex 10 over on the Fit Father side, which also has the Apex 10 workout in the first phase, the majority of the guys who start that program can't do that, which is pretty
Wow.
awesome. Not that it's about comparing, but I mean, you're
Right.
smoking like a lot of the guys on that side. And I hope some of them get a chance to
Oh,
listen to this and have some goals to like use those weights that you can use. So that's got to be
oh,
pretty encouraging. I'd love to hear
wow.
too what your family has said as they've seen you walk this path. Your husband, your sons, like what's been going on? Like what have they said to you? Any NSVs on that front, or any comments said, or just like what's it been like getting healthy with your family around you?
That's my boys are just, they're kind of hilarious. I have one who's a former Marine, and I have another one who did CrossFit for a number of years, and so they initially, it was just kind of like, "Oh, mom, you've lost weight. Well, thank you," and then they'd say, "Wow, look at those kettlebells you bought. That's really impressive,"
Mm-hmm.
and so it just kind of went on from there. But I think the real piece was the Ragnar. When I
Mm-hmm.
did the Ragnar with the team, and I actually, when I was running through it, I'd take videos and I'd send them to them. Love you guys. Here I am. I'm on my first leg. It's awesome. And and all of them, they actually went out to one of my son's girlfriends as well, and actually two of my son's girlfriends, and they all said, "Gosh, mom, you're such a badass." I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
really? Really? So it was just kind of beautiful to have them cheering me on and supporting me. And although my youngest, I will say, so he's a junior at St. Louis University, and he'll come home. He's like, "Oh my gosh, all you guys are eating is like hippie food. There's chia seeds in there," and I'm like, "Yeah, dude, you need to cut back on the pizza." But I'll let you progress into that, through your
He'll get
college
it when he's
years.
out of his 20s. Yeah, he'll understand.
Exactly. Because he was a varsity swimmer, so I mean, he's a few years out of that now. But they're supportive, encouraging, and I feel very honored by my sons. They recognize the struggles. They know the struggles. We've lived them together as a family, all the different
Mm-hmm.
struggles, and so they just, I feel they're just beautiful, just respect, and I'm even afraid to say it, admiration. But they're just marvelous men. So yeah. So thank you
That's
for
really
asking.
wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure your boys are really, really proud of you. And I just got this kind of like, obviously a huge smile on my face, but the stark contrast between where you were at when you were packing your life into that pod, feeling bloated and exhausted, to fast forward 2 years, running like a relay race with some people you met online, feeling in great shape, sending videos to your family. Like, that's a very stark picture. And what I think was really amazing about that is the woman packing up the pod wasn't thinking about any of these crazy possibilities of doing something like a relay race. You were just kind of looking for a little foothold. So this tells us that, like, life is this grand adventure where if you can just take these initiating steps, I feel in alignment with like your true through line of desire and where you think is like your highest path, the stuff that happens, the blessings, the adventures are like unforetold. You don't even need to know where it's going to go, but it's just so cool for me to hear like the kinds of things you're experiencing now that you probably never would have thought was like an interest or a possibility or whatever, right? It's just, it seems so random, like relay race from that, like speak into that a little bit, like just the adventure that comes from getting yourself healthy.
Oh my goodness. This is just a huge shout out to Amy because she really, I put my name in about 10 weeks prior. And then she gave me the training schedule. And then I'm thinking, what did I sign up for? What am I thinking? And then she's like, come on, you can do this. You keep going. And, and then we had a couple of Zoom calls and phone conversations, and she just kept reassuring me. And, it is remarkable because 2 years and 2 months ago, this would have never been on my radar, like ever. And this is what I said actually to our team. And it was hilarious because a very close friend of mine last week said to me, so you went and ran a race and slept in a van with sweaty people that you've never met before. I said, yeah. And I texted my husband and said, I would do this again. She's like, oh my gosh. But to your point, I mean, it's true. It's a remarkable mental transformation of saying, and I have to really credit Fit Moms for this. And I did say this to our group when we were, kind of packing up and winding down to leave, was that this program, Fit Mothers and Fit Fathers, has made something like the Ragnar accessible to people like me who never, ever would have even given it a blink. Like, oh, those are just elite people. But what was even more extraordinary in that, and I just need to digress on this because this moved me so much, was that group of people, being with them. Like, I had one of my running, he's called my running buddy now in our text group. He ran with me at 2:30 in the morning. And these are incredible people that have overcome incredible obstacles. And that to me was like, this makes sense to me. This is not, it's not just, and I have huge admiration for super ultras that do it for a living, but these are people that have overcome obstacles and joined together sort of in this common mission of just trying to be the best we can be, overcoming these obstacles. And I'm humbled by that. I really am truly humbled by it, and just is so incredibly grateful that I got to hear the stories of just these incredible men and women. It's amazing. It is amazing. And these folks are my heroes. I got to tell you, they're my heroes.
And do you know what I think is beautiful? And I'll speak for them in this sense. Like, insofar as you're sitting there feeling like they're a source of inspiration for you, you are on the other side, like a node for them, that they're probably looking at you being like, oh my gosh, Deb's so amazing. She overcame so much. It's like, it's a reciprocal giving of inspiration and receiving by being in like-minded community. Nothing's like one-sided when it comes to goodness. There's this like mutual exchange, and you may not realize it from your perspective, but I know it's happening. And clearly, what's this podcast doing? I mean, someone's listening to this and finding like inspiration from that. And based on what you shared, I want to talk now about the people that have been involved in this journey, because it's one thing to get a meal plan and a recipe book. It's another thing to get some workouts and start to do things. But I know what makes Fit Mother special for so many ladies is there's this community. There's our team. There's this community. You experienced it a little bit in Ragnar, but like, what would you speak to like the Fit Mother sisterhood, the groups, interaction with some of the other ladies on the program? How important was that in your transformation? And I'd love just for you to share about that.
Sure. No, it's huge actually. And it's funny. I was just reflecting on that this morning, and just all of the different women. When somebody kind of drops off and you don't see them for a while, or life circumstances. And there was one gal, I consider her my friend. I've never met her, but she popped up again, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. I've been thinking about you." I know she had a lot of struggle going on in her life at the time. She said, "Oh no, I'm back." And there is again, it goes back to the beauty and the incredible gift of technology, right? Like 20 years ago, who would have ever thought we'd be
Hmm.
building communities of camaraderie and friendship and real deep relationships over
Hmm.
the internet. But so it's been, and what's interesting is that, to be able to keep going back to it, when I overused my knees and just kind of just thought, all right, now I've got to stop for at least a week. I've got to ice and stretch, and I've got to be humble about the fact that I overdid it. And I
Hmm.
post that in the diamond group, for the women that have finished the all the phases, and getting, "Oh, yep, been there, done that. Don't worry, hang in there. You'll get to the next point." And there's always an affirming word. And I feel that in many ways it's I don't want to say responsibility, but it's my privilege to be able to do that for other women too.
Yeah.
Because we have all of us have a story. We've all gone through the ups and downs of life. None of us
Hmm.
come out of this this life. It's never just a free ride down an easy river.
Right. Right.
So yeah, but the sisterhood, it's a place where you meet people, where you gather people, you check in, you support each other. If you fall off the wagon, people rally with you. It's really it's just, I'm kind of like at a loss for words. It's a marvelous, marvelous thing that has become a big part of my just checking in with everybody. It's
Yeah.
a big part of checking in. So yeah, it's if that was your invention, Dr. A, it's genius.
I'll say it's something honestly that just kind of happened. I consider it more of like an emergent property. Like we're like, we should probably get everyone in a group, but the magic happens when the people are
Right,
there and the connection happens. It's not something you
right,
can create. It's something that you can create a container for, but
right,
this is just like goodness of people. And I think another thing that's interesting is for many of us as we get older, it's not always that our closest local friends and family are on the same wavelength. I mean, some people are
right.
blessed to have like really healthy, fit local friends, but other people like you don't have that opportunity. So it's kind of fun to have what if you're considered crazy. I don't know if you are in your local friend group. They're like, oh my gosh, she's doing her kettlebell workouts in the morning again. Like you're now in a group of people where this is the norm. And I
Right.
think it's good to have. There's that quote that your character is the sum of the five people that you spend the most time with. Whether or not that's true, I think the idea behind it is there. If you're around like high standard groups of people, you elevate yourself. We rise to the occasion. The strength of the
Right.
human spirit rises to the occasion, and this gives us a chance to rise and to elevate
Absolutely.
others too. So I think that's
Yes,
amazing. And then I guess
absolutely.
one thing that comes to my mind too is there's like a capstone. It's like the cherry on top of the cake is when we get to go through these journeys and then turn it around into service. And so I think this is probably a hallmark of your career and your work is like to go through your own journeys of, finding yourself, finding love and truth and purification and whatever that means to you. And then to be able to guide
Right.
others in that. It's the
Right.
same in the physical domain too. And you came on this podcast for that reason as well, to be able to give that blessing to others. So I honor you from that. And it's obviously a big theme in your life. So
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you. It is absolutely. It's the driving energy at the, I think of it as there's a river, right? But
Hmm.
then at the river, underneath the rocks is the current, and that's the current that's running below all of this other stuff happening. And that's the current, by grace, that's the current of my life that I continually tap back into. So yeah.
Nice. Okay, well, a
Yeah.
couple final questions because this
Sure.
has been an amazing conversation.
Well,
One
thank
is
you.
going to be a question I like to ask, and is that to you now, going through what you've gone through, what does it mean to be a fit mother?
Oh my goodness. Embracing the best of who I am created to be,
Nice.
embracing it, you know, not just identifying it, but embracing it and then living out of that. And I really mean that. I mean, I say it with just complete and total passion because as we've already discussed, it's body, mind, and spirit. And I really, that's what it is for me.
Nice. Okay. So now next question is, what advice would you give to a woman following this program who's in the first 6 months, maybe even the first couple months, but like in that initial phase? Any words of wisdom that maybe haven't been shared yet, or just words of encouragement? What would you say to a woman starting this out?
My encouragement is don't despair. Don't give up. Know that it's there. You can pick it up again. And these are probably the hardest words of all, because I have to play them to myself still, is to not worry too much about the number on the scale, because there is going to be that little bit of movement, as we always talk about in the group. But it really is this overall body, mind, spirit of transformation. And when life sets you back, it doesn't mean that it's over and done with. You just kind of pull everything open again and move forward, but not to give up. That's my biggest encouragement, because there's just too much goodness waiting. There's too much reward. It's like, why stop there? Just keep going.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why it's so important for these conversations, because it's the idea of like you're digging for gold and you're just a couple strikes away, that kind of concept. It's so important that ladies can see someone like you that's been 2 years down, and you can confidently say from your direct experience, keep going, because there's more awesome. So I appreciate you really holding the container for the space of that conversation, that message today. And I want to know, the final question is, what's next for you? Like looking into next year, we're going through the holidays. We're recording this in November 2022. 2023 is right around the corner. A lot of people are going to be doing New Year's resolutions, but thankfully this year, you have that on the background of like already have a system. Do you have any new goals for next year? Stuff you're interested in exploring with your body or your health, or anything, just life in general?
Oh gosh. So I'm kind of on sabbatical from work. So my work kind of, I'm kind of leaning into finding out what the next part of my work life will be. So that's kind of huge on my horizon. But I actually sent Amy a little message and toyed with the idea of this half marathon they signed up for down in South Carolina. And she gave me the dates, and I said, well, I could do a couch to half marathon. I did the couch to 5K. And she sent me the app, and she said, "Yep, you can do this." So, I'm still toying with it. So, but I know that I do, and it isn't just about running the race, right? I mean, that's a good thing, but it is about, for me, it's just about overcoming fear, overcoming anxiety, overcoming, looking around. Well, that guy just ran a 5-minute mile, and I'm still trucking along here. But it's just about, again, it goes back to being the best that I can be, and knowing that there's always something new to embrace.
Right.
I mean, there really is always something new to embrace. I mean, that's the hope that we're called to live in, even in, struggling times. There's that hope piece is critical.
That's so well said. And I mean, if there's not much I could plus on that, but like what you're describing is growth. You're describing growth, growing into new challenges, stepping into the unknown. And it's so apparent to me, seeing all the ladies in Fit Mother and the guys in Fit Father, that one of the biggest changes that happens when you embrace this physical journey is that you start to get into growth mode, because you have to face uncomfortable things and make changes. And then that mentality just translates into other areas of your life. And so many people, unfortunately, make the mistake, midlife, where they do think they're kind of over the hill and they stop growing, because they're not forced to grow like you were when you were in school, or maybe when your career was starting. You can get into this rut, but now like possibilities, new life, like what's around the corner? I don't know, but I know that you have a body that's going to be a beautiful vehicle for you for many years to come. And I hope that you do gain, you're going to gain the clarity on the next steps of your career, and you can continue to help people. And I just want to thank you again on behalf of our entire Fit Mother community for being perfect example of what a Fit Mother is, for working this program with just so much fervor and passion and integrity and all this stuff. It's been a wonderful conversation, Deb. Thanks again.
Thank you, Dr. A. Thank you for everything you do, and it's been a privilege and a joy.